This podcast is brought to you by Gridiron Heroics Media.
Check the mic and make sure it sound right, boys.
Welcome one and all to the Gridiron Heroics Football Show. I'm Max Dean. You can find me on Twitter at @TheMaxDean. And once again, I am a faceless voice because updates could not get the camera working. I really don't know what the problem is. But it is what it is. You'll just have to listen to the sultry sounds of my voice and imagine that I'm there. And today I am joined by my two usual cohorts for the Sunday Pick'em Show to pick every single Sunday NFL game against the spread. We're going to do Monday Night Football too. We have Kyle Nishida and Bryson Owens. Kyle, how you doing today?
Doing all right. Hope everybody's getting the start to the new year. Hopefully we give you a lot of good picks today that get the good year started.
Yeah, man, I do way better on my picks when we do the shows together. I had a rough week last week, so I'm gonna need a good week to start this year off. Bryson, how are you today?
I'm doing really well, ready to get back into it. It's been a while, taking our little break there for a second. I've missed doing the show with you guys. I'm ready to get the new year started with a, hopefully, good week.
Yeah, I needed some quality holiday time with the family, but I am eager to get back to making some picks as well. So, where to start? I guess we'll start right at the beginning of the top of the page here. That works. I just got to say something real quick. I listened back because I didn't write down what everybody's preseason predictions were, so I had to go back and listen so that I could mark them down for the end of the year show. I'm having some fun with that. I'm almost done. Do you guys remember what some of your picks were?
Ooh.
Yes.
Yeah.
We got some.
I am
we got
proud
some
about
bangers.
a couple of them.
Yes.
Proud about a couple of them, but there's a few that I missed so badly.
Well, it's tough because it always happens. I will say it really depends on how the next couple of weeks shake out, but I'm feeling really good about the majority of my picks. There's none that there's only like one that I'm kind of kicking myself for, but yeah, man, I don't want to spoil it because we're going to do that show once the season has fully concluded, but I was definitely laughing about some of them. I gotta say, Kyle, do you remember who you picked as the MVP for this year?
Yes. It's not good. It is not good.
All right, let's jump into today. I just had to say because I was listening to it last night after my kids went to bed. But all right, we have the New England Patriots as 2.5-point favorites hosting the Miami Dolphins. Of course, this has to do with the loss of Tua Tagovailoa to concussion. Let me just make sure that doesn't restart on me while I'm running this. Cancel. Okay. Obviously, Tua Tagovailoa is a big loss for them. Looks like they're going to be having Teddy Bridgewater starting in place. They still have all of their weapons. Their defense is a little bit suspect. This is interesting. I'm kind of surprised that the Patriots are favorites at this point. I know that they are home, but with the explosion that the Dolphins have, they still have an excellent opportunity to walk away with this win. And this is for playoff relevance. The Patriots need to win out to get to the playoffs. The Dolphins could potentially lose one as long as the Patriots lose next week and the Dolphins also beat the Jets. So they have a little bit more flexibility right now. The Patriots are really, knuckles to the grindstone to try and make it. So Kyle, what do you think? Do you think that the Patriots keep their hopes alive?
Yeah, this is kind of a tough one. I've been going back and forth. I'm actually been clicking back and forth as we speak. I'm not entirely certain. The Patriots kind of the way they lost that Oakland or that Las Vegas game really changed my entire outlook on what they are, and I just don't know how to treat them anymore. That said, I'm not in love with what the Dolphins are doing with what's happened to the Dolphins, especially with what's going on with Tua, and then even Teddy Bridgewater. I'm not sure what I'm getting with Teddy Bridgewater because, frankly, we're this late in the season. I realize this is a second start, but again, he hasn't played that much for the Dolphins, in terms of like trying to pick up where Tua left off. So I
Played one
honestly,
snap.
yeah, and that's my thing. I was like, I don't know what to get from this guy. So uh, it's probably not the greatest idea to go with the Dolphins plus 2.5 or 2.5, but I'm gonna go with that here. I don't know what the Patriots are gonna do offensively to even make to force Teddy Bridgewater into a lot of situations where he has to overextend himself.
That's interesting because I'm very confident taking the Dolphins in this one. I think that Patriots offense, it's rough to watch at times. And even with Teddy Bridgewater in this game, I think there's enough talent around him where he can get the job done. Teddy Bridgewater is an experienced NFL quarterback. He's been to playoff games, he's been to a Pro Bowl. It's not like we're asking a rookie who's never played in the NFL to come in and lead this offense. I mean, we're asking a proven NFL veteran to come in and do things for this Dolphins offense. I think he can do a lot of things that Tua can. I mean, neither player is overly athletic. Neither player has the biggest arm in the world. They're both known for their ability to throw the ball accurately. And then I know both teams are on a bit of a losing streak right now. I'm more impressed by the Dolphins during their losing streak than I am with the Patriots. I mean, the Dolphins have lost to the Niners, who look like probably the most complete team in the NFC. They lost to the Chargers, who are now a playoff team, the Bills, who are the number one seed in the AFC, and the Packers, who are streaking their way into possible playoff spots. So they're losing games to better teams than the Patriots lost to. So I'm more impressed with what the Dolphins have done lately. And even if Teddy Bridgewater's Teddy Bridgewater playing in this game, having Tyreek Hill, having Jalen Waddle, having Mike Gesicki, I think is enough for him to get the job done against the Patriots. Even if they don't win, I don't think the Patriots have enough to win by more than a field goal.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Dolphins as well. One of the reasons is that the Patriots are for sure missing cornerback Jack Jones and Marcus Jones, and Jonathan Jones and Jalen Mills are both questionable. So even if they play, they're banged up. So, I mean, that's tough. That's a really, really important part of Belichick's defense. And I know that he's pretty good at coaching up guys, but we're not just coaching up guys against, the Packers receivers right now. Like this is Tyreek Hill. This is Jalen Waddle. These guys are in the top of the NFL in receiving yards. They can take any pass to the house. You have to play them perfectly. And I just don't see that happening. And I also don't see the Patriots offense necessarily making up for that. So I understand why the line's a little bit closer than, what it would probably be if Tua was in there. But still, like, I think that we should probably not be giving points to the Dolphins right now. But that being said, I'll take them. Next up, we have the Cleveland Browns +2 going into the Commanders. The one thing I will say about our predictions is not a single one of us selected the Browns to go to the playoffs. Not you, Bryson, not you, Kyle, not myself, nor any of the other guys who did that show with us. So we were all on the same page about this season not going super well for them. They're now officially eliminated from playoff contention. Deshaun Watson, he's had a couple of moments, but to be honest, he's not looking, great, which is something that I think a lot of people predicted. But they are going into the Commanders, who are fighting for their playoff lives. Do we think that Carson Wentz can now lead this team one game closer? Because again, if they win out, they are also in.
The answer is no. As much as I don't think Deshaun's going to get together for in the final two games of this season, I'm not trusting anything Carson Wentz is doing. And obviously, I am biased from what happened last year with him on the Colts, but he does not have the proven track record in terms of these spots coming up big and capitalizing on the moment. If you look at this year, they're 2-4 against the spread and straight up with him as the starting quarterback, he's got a QBR of 32.6. So he has not been good. I understand Deshaun hasn't been good, but at the same time, it's just one of those things where it's like I'm not really confident in either of these two teams' offenses, and the spread being 2, I have it 2.5 for the Browns right now, and I'm gonna keep it that way. I just feel more comfortable about the under in this game, to be frankly honest. But in terms of like trusting Carson Wentz, I'm not going to do that. I understand they're at home, but again, it's not like Washington has this overwhelming home field advantage that I'm worried about. So I'll take the Browns +2.
Yeah, I'm with you, Kyle. Another reason I'm really confident in taking the Browns is the fact that you've got Carson Wentz coming back after not playing for a lot of stretch of the season. Like he's going to be out of rhythm early in this game. It's a big moment. We're going to see if he can step in and win these type of games. When in the past parts of his career, these type of win in your in playoff type scenarios, he's not come up big throughout his career. So I'm not I don't have a huge confidence in backing up Carson Wentz with anything. And then I really like the Browns for their run game. They have one of the best running back duos, if not the best running back duo in the NFL. And if there is a weakness to this Washington defense that has been playing very, very well lately, it is against the run. That is the weakest part of their defense. I know that they have a really talented defensive line, but if the Browns can just continue to run the ball really well, make life easy on Deshaun Watson, and not give the Commanders more opportunities to score points, I think that's going to be huge for them in this game. And I think with that running back duo, that's going to be what their plan is. And then if there's a strength of this Browns defense, it is against the pass. They're 8th in the NFL in terms of passing yards per game. So I think they're going to make life really difficult on Carson Wentz. I know that the Browns really aren't playing for much right now, but I think that the Commanders are kind of a mess right now. They're not really doing anything too impressive over the last few weeks. And with Carson Wentz coming back after not playing for so long, I have more confidence in the Browns squeaking away with a win. I don't think it's going to be an overly dominant game for the Browns, but I think it's going to be enough to walk away from this game with it a close win.
It's tough because any one of these weeks, Deshaun Watson could start kind of feeling himself and play a little bit better. But that defensive line is only getting better for the Commanders. They were already good, and they just got Chase Young back, and he actually looked like a legitimate player. He didn't look like a guy who just missed, the better part of 2 years. So when you got that full complement of players, you got Jonathan Allen, you got Deron Payne playing at that level, I just feel like they can get it done, and they somewhat neutralize the best part of the Browns team, which is their offensive line. And then they have a good back end, and everyone's pretty healthy for the Commanders right now. They're a little bit shallow, in terms of depth, but right now everybody's set to play. Benjamin St-Juste is questionable, but he's probably going to play. Cam Curl's questionable. He's probably going to play. Those guys are key players for them. And they have more weapons, just a lot more weapons. Although Antonio Gibson is out, Robinson is in, and that's really important. Like, he's a big part of their rushing attack, definitely their lead back. And then they've got Terry McLaurin, and they've got Jahan Dotson, and they've got Curtis Samuel. And I know that the pass defense has been okay, but, part of the reason that the Browns' passing defensive stats have not been that bad is because they get multiple games against the Steelers, multiple games against the Ravens. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not saying that they're awful otherwise, but I think some of their stats are a little bit disingenuous, so to speak. So I'm going to take the Commanders in this game. With only -2, we're really not that far off of a pick 'em and fighting for their playoff lives. Yes, could Carson Wentz throw it away at the last possible minute? Yeah, but I think the team overall is more talented, and if they get a good pass rush going, then it might be an ugly day for Deshaun Watson as well. So I don't feel super great about it, but I am going to ride the Commanders for this week at least. All right. For the next week, we have quite the spread. The Kansas City Chiefs are -12.5 hosting the Denver Broncos. So Patrick Mahomes leading the league in passing, leading odds in MVP versus the Broncos, who still have a very good defense. But, at what point does the pride of being a good defense run out when they're down, maybe 15 at halftime
Mhm.
or even 17 at halftime, and the offense just can't do anything. So, at some point it's tough to keep going out there and playing your best. So the question is, can they keep it within 12.5 points? Because obviously I don't think anybody's predicting a win here, Kyle.
Yeah, this spread's kind of maddening. I'm basically ready for like any games involving the Broncos to be done picking, because I cannot figure this team out, and nor should I be trying to figure this team out this late in the season. I'm just gonna take Broncos plus 12.5. They're it's it's just one of those things, like the spread's just a little bit too much for me. If it were back down to like a 9, I'd probably be fine. I understand that the whole like Hackett being gone thing probably changes the course of what their offense is going to look like, but that might actually be a good thing. It's just one of these things though. It's as far as I'm looking at right now, teams that fire a head coach are like mid-season are 48% against the spread, which is almost like which is like 12 to 16% more of an improvement from what that team previously was before they fired the head coach. So it's almost a coin flip in these situations the game after. So with such a high spread, I'm just going to go off the numbers and take the historical trend and take the points here. It's just enough to where I'm gonna do it. So I'll take Broncos plus 12.5, as much as I don't feel great about that pick.
Yeah, as much as this pains me to say, I'm taking the Chiefs here. I know what's interesting is last time these two teams played, the Chiefs had a massive spread against the Broncos, and they actually covered and had a chance to win the game late. But that was in Denver. That was Russell Wilson's best game of the season as a Bronco. Now we've put 2 more players on IR for a league-leading 20 players on IR, with Greg Dulcich, our rookie tight end, and Randy Gregory going on IR. So we're just dropping like flies. More starters are on IR for this game. We're coming off probably the worst performance I've seen from the Broncos in my lifetime off Christmas Day. That was absolutely embarrassing. The team is fighting with each other. They fired their head coach. It's ugly in Denver right now. And the Chiefs, they're still playing for the 1 seed. Like at this point in the season, you look at this game and be like, well, the Chiefs probably aren't playing for much. They've clinched a playoff spot. They've clinched their division. They probably aren't going to take this game too seriously at home in a division rival, with the chance for the 1 seed, with who the Bills and Bengals playing each other later in the week. I think this is a chance for the Chiefs to look at this and go, they need to make a statement game. They need to beat their division rival by a ton of points, move into possibly the 1 seed going into the last week of the season. So I think the Chiefs are going to take this game seriously. I think the Broncos are way too outmatched in this game, even with that impressive defense. I think, to your point, Max, I think that breaking point was last week. I think the defense was tired of the offense just not doing anything to help them out, and they gave up halfway through that game against the Rams. So I think a similar thing happens this week against the Chiefs, and I think they're going to just blow out Denver in Arrowhead.
Yeah, I'm not sure if the defense will give up as badly. You tend to get a little bit of a boost with the new head coach, but part of the problem is I think some of the cultural issues there stem directly from Russell Wilson's role there. And the coach is gone, but he's not. He's still there. And so it's tough for me to estimate if they get that interim head coach boost that basically you're talking about, Kyle, which it's definitely a real thing. The numbers back it up. So, but the other thing is, like, you're just putting a Denver Broncos team against the Kansas City Chiefs, which are just an unstoppable force. They're just a juggernaut, especially offensively. And like you said as well, Bryce, and they're fighting for the number 1 seed. They are not taking their foot off the gas. there's a chance that the Bills could lose today against another very good AFC team, putting the Chiefs in prime position. And if that's the case, then they get a week off. So I don't think that there's any chance that they're walking into this game without being fully prepared to, put foot to throat, so to speak. So I'm going to take the Chiefs minus 12.5 in this game as well. All right. Next up, we have the Buccaneers and the Panthers in a game that will decide which sub 500 team wins the NFC South. Buccaneers are minus 3.5, so they are favorites at home. Plus just a little bit. So look, the Panthers, they got their interim head coach boost, and they've actually looked like a legitimate NFL team. Buccaneers have a much better run defense than they have faced, so they're probably not going to be going absolutely insane with the stats, but they might do just enough. They might keep Sam Darnold just clean enough to operate his ridiculous play action, extremely heavy passing offense that they've been operating, and possibly win this game, possibly cover the spread. It's like I've seen Tom Brady versus Sam Darnold just enough times to I think this is a ridiculous concept that he might actually win this game. But look, who knows? Kyle, what do you think?
Well, I mean, you guys have heard me for the past 2 months. I don't think the Buccaneers are a good football team. I'm not taking them here. I'm taking the Panthers +4 here. I just think they're not performing very well. And as strange as it sounds, the Panthers are performing well. I just like the number. I mean, 3.5 gets me the key number of 3. And if you just look at the season right now, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers with Tom Brady are 3-11-1 against the spread. Like they aren't covering. They're doing like just enough to squeak by in some games. I totally anticipate that happening again, and I also don't understand why the over under is 40.5 when I'm not sure either of these teams can score 20 today. So I would take the under in this game as well. So I'm going with the Panthers +4. I understand the whole history between Sam Darnold versus Tom Brady is not great, but at the same time, very different Tom Brady. This Bucks team is not performing really well. I don't think they're very well coached either. So it's an opportunity for the Panthers. And again, I also think the Panthers have a good game plan in terms of what they want to do. Remember, they did kind of just smack around the Buccaneers earlier this season. And I think they at least understand what the Buccaneers are. And so long as they keep Leonard Fournette and Rachaad White from running, they're gonna keep this game close, at least to the point, and potentially win as well.
Yeah, I'm with you, Kyle. I think that what's interesting here, home teams get an automatic 3 points. So Vegas is saying that the Bucks are only half a point better in this spot than the Panthers, which I find really interesting in this kind of matchup. But then also the Panthers with Sam Darnold, I don't know what it is, but they just have been playing all around a lot better than they did with any of the other quarterbacks they've had all year. It's not like Sam's doing anything overly great for this team, but he's just not doing the dumb things that like Baker Mayfield was doing earlier in the year that put them in bad positions. Sam's just keeping everything going, flowing in a smooth direction. And then the Bucks have a lot of key players in this game who are questionable, most likely going to play at this point. But even if they play, they're not going to be 100%. Donovan Smith, their tackles, questionable. Vita Vea is questionable. If he's not 100% for this game, that's huge for that Panthers run offense with Deontay Foreman. And then Jamil Dean, Mike Edwards, Carlton Davis, and Antoine Winfield are all questionable in this game. That's a lot of their key secondary players who may not be able to go for this game. So I think injuries play a bit of a factor here, but I just also think the Panthers are playing with a lot more momentum. But let's be real here. At that 3.5, what's really probably going to happen is the Bucks are going to be down 5 with 3 minutes left in the game. Tom Brady's going to get the ball and go down and win the game on a last-second play, which will get you the cover if you're taking the Panthers, but the Bucks get the win. So that's probably how I see this game going. The Panthers are going to do just enough to look like they're going to pull it off, get the win late in the game, but then Tom Brady's going to do the only way the Bucks know how to win are these late game miracles by Tom Brady. So I'm going to take the Panthers, but I think they have a huge chance to backdoor cover in this game.
Yeah, I don't think I could have said it better, Bryson. I mean, the beauty of this is that you can take the Panthers with points, and it really doesn't matter if the Bucks squeak it out at the end or they don't. You'll probably still get that cover. So, I think some of the point spreads have been reflective of Vegas moving towards a 2.5 point swing. If for these home teams, I think that's probably a little more accurate than straight up 3 now. But again, I'm definitely not an expert in the betting world, but just in NFL in particular, I think that they're correcting themselves ever so slightly. But I'll take the Panthers. I don't know if they will be able to actually win this game and make it to the playoffs. But again, the Buccaneers I feel like they've won their entire slew of games this season by like a combined total of 5 points. So probably comfortable taking the Panthers here. All right. Next up, we have the Jacksonville Jaguars at Houston Texans. Only -3.5 right now, which seems insane to me, but they've been playing so much better than the Texans. The Texans have been playing tough against teams, but the Jaguars are hot right now. They've had almost a week and a half to rest, get ready, game plan, and prepare for this. I just don't see Trevor Lawrence comparatively speaking to how teams have played against the Jets. Trevor Lawrence played pretty well against the Jets defense. I don't see him going from that to laying an egg versus the Houston Texans right now. So, I mean, obviously that kind of prefaces what I think is going to happen, but it's just the spread doesn't really make a ton of sense to me. Kyle, what do you think?
Yeah, the spread is kind of in a strange spot. I will say this though, I am actually going to take the Texans plus 3.5 here,
Okay.
and the reason why I'm doing this is, number one, you guys know me. Anytime I see the Jaguars as favorites, your inclination should be going the opposite way, mainly because they have not won a game that they've been favored in for almost half a decade now. So it just going straight off trends, that's one reason why. The other reason why is that it is also another historical thing. The Texans are actually the Jaguars' worst. Like, they cannot beat the Texans for whatever reason. Obviously, Deshaun Watson plays a lot into that, but even before that, since 2014, the Texans are 15-2 straight up against the Jaguars, and Davis Mills is 2-0 straight up and against the spread against the Jaguars. So it this is just kind of one where I'm just gonna go with the historical trend. If I lose because of it, if I just lose, that's perfectly fine. It's just one of those things. Like, I'll believe it when I see it from the Jaguars, because they're now in the spot where they're the favorite, and they have not done well in the past, regardless of who their quarterback is. So until I see them actually follow through in a moment like this, I'm not gonna jump on that bandwagon just yet.
I get going with the historical trends for these Jaguars because it's always scary taking a team like the Jaguars when they're favorites. You tend to, throughout this winning streak they've been on, they've been underdogs, and you really like them in the plus money type spots. But those past Jaguars teams didn't have a Trevor Lawrence playing at a Pro Bowl level. Like, Trevor Lawrence looks absolutely incredible over the stretch of games that he's been playing. I just don't know. I don't know who on the Texans is going to be able to score enough to keep up with the Jaguars. I mean, that offense for Jacksonville is explosive right now. I mean, they've got so many guys who can beat you. Evan Ingram looks like a Pro Bowl tight end again. Like, he looks very good in this offense. He's getting Christian Kirk and Zay Jones a lot of targets. They're being very productive. Travis Etienne looks like a really good running back right now. And all of the Texans' good playmakers are basically out. I mean, they're already 30th in the NFL in rushing, and they don't have they don't have their rookie running back who was really good early in the year. And they don't have Derek Stingley. He's out in this game. So, like, they're two most talented players in this game. Derek Stingley and Damian Pierce are both out going against this Jaguars team who's on a roll. They're playing for their chance to win their division. I think part of why this spread was so close was their were some rumors that the Jaguars might have been resting guys to get ready for week 7 or week 18 against the Titans. That's been like debunked. The Jaguars have come out and said they're not resting anyone. They're at full go. They're going to play everyone who can give it a go today. And I just think the Jaguars just have way too much going on right now to drop this game against the Texans. So I think taking the Jaguars is probably my most comfortable pick in this week.
I don't know if it's my most comfortable pick in this week, but I'm going to roll with them too. I think historical trends, they have relevancy 100%, but I think, there are certain teams who do just turn a corner from year to year, and maybe that doesn't last, but at least for this season, it looks like the Jags have done it. There was a time when the Browns had done it, and it looked like the Jets have done it, depending on, who's playing quarterback for them. So I think historical trends are historical, and sometimes you got to take a look and see if there is something that is so fundamental that has changed about that team that you got to get away from it. So Kyle, you made a good case, and I'm less confident in it now than I was before, but I am going to take the Jaguars to cover in this game. All right. Next up, we have the New Orleans Saints plus 5.5 underdogs going to Philadelphia. Okay. You want to talk about games that I am most comfortable picking? Probably it's going to be this one. But what do you think, Kyle?
Yeah, I have the Eagles minus 5.5 here. I really do want to take the Saints. Mainly because the Saints still have a chance to win the division. That's still on the table for them. But I just think the Eagles are too talented. They were still very, very good with Gardner Minshew at quarterback, and so I just don't know if that's the level they're going to be at, even with Minshew at quarterback, how the Saints keep up offensively. So I'm going to take the Eagles minus 5.5 here. And if the Saints do pull a rabbit out of their hat, then so be it. But I think the Eagles minus 5.5 here is the play.
Yeah, I'm also taking the Eagles minus 5.5. I know that there's some injuries on the Eagles side that scare people. Obviously, Jalen Hurts being out. You got Gardner Minshew, and like Kyle said, though, Gardner Minshew played just good enough against the Cowboys. That offense was still moving. It was still putting up points against that Dallas Cowboys defense, which I think is better than the Saints defense. So that gives me confidence in picking Gardner Minshew in this matchup. I get no Lane Johnson either. That's a huge miss. Avonte Maddox is out. That's another big player. But I don't know who on this Saints offense has anyone that's going to put up points. No Jarvis Landry, no Michael Thomas. Chris Olave, who's been their most consistent receiver, he's questionable with a hamstring injury going into the game. So it's really you're most confident in Alvin Kamara, who's been so up and down this season that I have no confidence in picking him going against this Eagles defense. And then you're asking the Saints, who are playing for their playoff lives, to go against the Eagles in Philadelphia, who are still playing for the 1 seed. They have not clinched the 1 seed. Minnesota's right on their tail. Dallas is still right there for the division in general. So they're going to take this game very seriously. I think even with Gardner Minshew, they have way too much talent to drop this game to the Saints. 5.5 is a lot of points taking a backup quarterback, but I think Gardner Minshew is a different type of backup than most teams. He's a starting level quarterback in this league playing for the Eagles, and I think he's going to show that he is good enough to win these type of games for Philadelphia. So I'm going to take the Eagles at 5.5 as well.
I'm taking the Eagles at minus 5.5. I don't know if Gardner Minshew is a starting caliber quarterback, but I do think that he is among the elite of the backups. I think he's a top level backup. I'm not going to sit here and try and run through the entire NFL and decide if I think he's the best, but he's definitely up there. And he's not Jalen Hurts, but he's also not that insane of a drop off either within the structure of the offense that they have. And yes, Lane Johnson being out, that's stressful. It is, because he's one of their best players, but they still have Devontae Smith and AJ Brown
Mm-hmm.
and Miles Sanders and everybody else on that offensive line who's awesome, and their defense is great as well. So they're missing a couple guys, and not to make light of it, but this is against a Saints team that, you know, they might get hot and string a couple touchdown drives together consecutively, but they also might turn the ball over 3 times and a half. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
there's a confidence level there that you have, and I just don't think that it's even a question to take 5.5, because that's still less than a touchdown. And I think by the end of this game, there is going to be more than a touchdown difference between these two teams. All right. Next up, another team that has playoffs on the line. The Lions are hosting the Bears in a divisional matchup. Lions are 5.5 point favorites at home. I think the spread, I think if they want people to pick the Bears, the spread should probably be a little bit higher here. I mean, I don't know if the
Mm-hmm.
spread is wrong, but if you're trying to tempt people, I think you got to give them a little bit more than that, because this Lions offense is still very, very good, and they're playing for something. So Bears are like at this point, they're not, actively laying down, but they're kind of hoping to get the number 1 pick at this point. I have no doubt. So, it's just like I think that if you really wanted anyone to take the Bears here, you're probably going to have to move that line a little bit. I mean, Kyle, how do you feel about that?
Yeah, first I was like, I've reached the point in time now where I'm picking the Lions in a 5.5 point spread. Like that's kind of crazy to begin with. But I have the minus 5.5 here. I just think the Bears are gonna do the old shenanigan thing of well, we need the Texans to win one more game, and then we slide into the number 1 pick. So they'll they'll be competitive, but at the same time, I think the Lions are gonna understand where they're at, because they're honestly, I think they're what, a Commanders loss away and a win away from just sliding into that
Mm-hmm.
slot. So I think they understand the importance of it. Dan Campbell seems to do a really good job in terms of getting everybody motivated and prepared and understanding the moment. Obviously, last week that didn't necessarily happen, but again, the Panthers are also playing very, very well. But in this scenario, I think I feel comfortable taking the Lions minus 5.5, and I think the Bears are definitely going to do some things that give the Lions trouble, because they did so early mid-season. But at the same time, I think the Lions do understand that they're playing for more, and their offense is still humming right now. So I'll
Mm-hmm.
take the Lions minus 5.5.
Yeah, I'm also going to take the Lions at minus 5.5. It's stressful taking Detroit at this big of a number, but I think they're, like Kyle said, they're playing for way more than the Bears are, and they're playing. The big thing for me is, yes, that offense is still humming. They're playing at home, which means Jared Goff's probably gonna have a good game, because that's what Jared Goff does in Detroit. Home games, you can expect a pretty good performance out of him. Road games, a little shaky. So being at home is a big confidence boost for me in taking those Lions in this offense. But their defense has also been playing very, very well, or at least they're playing better over this kind of stretch of games they've been playing. In their last 8 games, they're 6-2, and that defense has been holding teams to under like 24 points pretty regularly during this stretch, which is pretty impressive for them considering where they were early in the year. Meanwhile, Chicago's on an 8-game losing streak. I just don't have any confidence taking a team on an 8-game losing streak, even to cover a 5.5 point spread, even with Justin Fields running the ball as well as he has, and that rest of the offense running the ball. Their passing game still worries me. It's still not consistent enough to make me pick a team to beat a team or even come close to beating a team that's playing for their playoff hopes. And they always just, this Bears offense, for whatever reason, they get set up in pretty good spots to score points. They always just come away with nothing. Like in the game against the Eagles, last time they played, I remember they got an interception that put them on the 25-yard line, and they didn't get any points. So like, that's the kind of stuff I expect out of the Bears. And I just don't have any confidence in them on that offense or defensive side being able to stop the Detroit Lions. So I'm going to take the Lions at 5.5, even if it is a little scary taking Detroit as that big a favorite.
Yeah. I mean, I'm pretty confident that the Lions are gonna win this game, and maybe it's not a full touchdown lead at halftime, but I think by the end of the game, it will be. The thing I'm concerned about with the Lions is having to go in and play the Packers next week because they might slide themselves into that playoff spot this week
Mhm.
and then slide right back out of it next week. Now, the Commanders, they have their control of their own destiny. So, I mean, if they win this week, they just maintain it regardless. But again, you know, there are some questions there. I mean, I think their offensive line is maybe not as strong as they would hope it would be. Um, so the Lions have a real chance to take over here. But regardless, no matter what happens with everybody else, they've got to get this win today, and I do think that they do it. So I'm taking the Lions. All right. In what must be the first 6-point favoritism for the Falcons this entire year, they are hosting the Cardinals. Falcons -6 versus the Cardinals, and I don't even know who's playing for the Cardinals. I mean, I was looking
David
at it
Blau.
earlier, and it's like, yeah, I mean, it's quarterback, but like, who's playing at receiver?
Right.
You know what I mean? So this is a really, really rough team, and again, here's the other thing: I don't think any of us in our entire crew of pickers prior to the season selected the Cardinals to make the playoffs either. I believe. It's like none of us bought into that either, which just makes it so wild that the team itself bought in so heavily to its own roster and its own situation. So, yes, Kyler Murray getting hurt, that obviously impacts it and sucks. But let's be honest, they were having a pretty atrocious season prior to that as well. So,
Mhm.
Kyle, what do you think? Do you think the Cardinals can surprise here and cover a 6-point spread? Because really, that's what we're asking here is not whether they can win or not.
Yeah, I honestly don't know. I want no part of this game. David Blau, Desmond Ridder, you're better off just sending your money somewhere else. To be frankly honest, trying to figure out an edge for this game is nearly impossible just because of the unknown variables that both these teams are right now. I actually am sitting on the Falcons -3 because
Mhm.
because that was before the David Blau thing. Now that it's at +6, I probably would take the Cardinals +6 here. I don't think anything suggests that the Falcons should be a -6 favorite in my mind, at least. I haven't seen it, and so I'd be as much as I know David Blau isn't great, and I don't think he's won a game in his NFL career as a starter. I would take the Cardinals just purely on the amount of point on 6 points being too much. That being said, I have it at -3 Falcons. I'll keep that one, but if you have the number at 6, I would take the Cardinals +6 because that's just too big of a number for me to comfortably say the Falcons can cover that. So that's kind of where my head's at.
Yeah, I'm in the same situation Kyle's in. I also got the Falcons at -3. Even at -6, I think I would stick with the Falcons. The Cardinals are on their fourth quarterback of the season with David Blau, and that just gives me zero confidence in them picking them to win or even come close in any kind of game right now. I mean, David Blau's fine. He's every other backup quarterback in this league, so he's nothing special. This Falcons team did a really good job early in the year covering spreads. I don't know how much that plays into a factor at this point in the season. I mean, both teams have suffered a ton of injuries. And obviously now the Falcons are rolling with a rookie quarterback in Desmond Ridder, who has been basically nothing. He hasn't been doing anything spectacular. He's not really done anything awful. He's just kind of been there. And so I think maybe this is a game Desmond Ridder has a small little breakout performance against this reeling Cardinals defense, which is just at this point it's so injured that you can't even I don't want to hold too much against how bad they're playing because of how many injuries they have, but it's not a good defense. So I think this Falcons offense with Cordero Patterson and Drake London are going to get enough going offensively to take a pretty early lead. And I just don't know if the Cardinals have anything to put up points even against this Falcons defense. So I'm not I'm not super confident picking either of these teams at the 6-point spread, but like Kyle, I got the Falcons at -3. I think they're good enough to win by that much. And even at -6, I'm probably just going to take the Falcons because I have no confidence taking a fourth string quarterback in this game.
I am also going to take the Falcons at -6. I think Desmond Ridder had incremental improvement from his first game to his second game. And I think the kind of player he is, he's probably going to see kind of that incremental improvement as he continues to play. Question is, where does he top out? I couldn't answer that. But this team is so bad in Arizona that I do think that this will kind of be a game where a lot of Falcons fans will be like, oh, look, we might have a guy. And then we'll see what happens next week and we'll see how they attack the offseason. But this will be that game that kind of makes them question whether they should try and go after a quarterback high in the draft. And they'll have to step back and look at it and be like, really, like, you know, is this going to keep us from making that move? I don't know. But I think those questions will arise more after today because, frankly, the Cardinals, they're missing guys in the back end of their defense. They're missing guys in the front of their defense. They weren't even really a good defense to start with. I mean, it's bad, and I just don't know how they're going to score with David Blau throwing to who. Is Marquise Brown even playing? I think Marquise Brown's playing, but like DeAndre Hopkins, no. You know what I mean? And their offensive line is not, it's just no good either. So, I mean, they're just bad in pretty much every facet of football right now. And the Falcons are at least pretty well coached, I think. So I think that we can stretch that into a 6-point game. And it might be a push. You know what? Honestly, it could be. This might be a game where the Falcons win by 2 field goals and then that's it. But regardless. All right. Giants hosting the Colts. All right. Colts have come close to playing spoiler here and there. They're +5.5 going into New York. The Giants have not technically clinched a playoff spot, but in terms of odds or percentage of a chance, however you want to phrase it, they're pretty high up there, so they're most likely making it. They're not a superstar team, but Colts are in a rough spot right now. Giants are probably going to end up winning this game, I would say, but can the Colts keep it close enough to cover 5.5 points?
I'm actually going to take the Giants -5.5 here. And to be frankly honest, this might be my favorite play of this week, just because if you guys saw what happened on Monday Night Football, the Colts got the directive. You guys need to suck. Like Jeff Saturday got that directive, and boy, did they run with it, because throwing Nick Foles out there was only one thing that was going to happen. They were not going to play well. He was going to play terrible, and basically the Colts now are sitting on a top 5 pick, and they are not going to jeopardize that now. In fact, they were probably going to try to improve it even more. So I think the Giants are obviously playing for more. A win gets them in prime position for the playoffs and everything like that. So I'm more than happy to take the Giants. I have them -5, -5.5. I'd take that. I think the Colts have gotten the directive. I think they're going to start shutting down guys. They've actually started shutting down guys like Yannick Ngakoue. Isaiah Rodgers got banged up in the last game. Wouldn't expect him to play. So the Colts are just banged up. They're shutting people down for the season. So I would definitely take the Giants -5.5 here. And then also one player prop that I've enjoyed following along with is Isaiah Hodgins for the Giants has been an absolute stud. And he's actually covered the over on his receiving yards prop for almost 2 months now since they started offering it. So, and he's at 39.5, and they've just been slowly rising it over the past couple of days or past couple of weeks, but he's still covering it. He might actually be their number 1 receiver for the Giants right now, which it's not hard to do. But the fact that he's their reliable guy, I actually that'd probably be a very, very comfortable bet to make as well for this game.
Yeah, I'm I'm also going to take the Giants at the 5.5 points. Just like Kyle said, they're playing for more. They're playing for a pretty much all but locked to make the playoffs with a win here. Going to 9-6-1, that would pretty much put them in the playoffs. It's not going to lock it in, but I think it gets them as close to a lock as it can get with this win. Daniel Jones, every time I seem to write him off, he doesn't do anything special. He only has 13 touchdown passes this year, but every time I seem to write him off in a game, he does something. He does just enough to get you a surprise win here and there. I think he's playing at a good enough level to he should be able to beat up on this Colts team at this point in the season with how banged up they are. And like Kyle said, they're clearly trying not to win games anymore. Saquon Barkley, I expect him to have a big game today. I expect Darius Slayton, who hasn't had a great season all year. He's been a little bit banged up here and there. I think he gets it going with Daniel Jones. He seems to have the best connection with Jones out of those like big receivers are on this roster throughout Jones's career. Like the big name ones, Slayton's had the best connection with Jones. So I think there's more good things going on for the Giants, which is not something you've heard for a while, than there are for the Colts. I think at this point in the year, the Giants at home, playing in front of their home crowd, they want a big win. They want to show their fans that they can make it to the playoffs. And the Colts are just, like Kyle said, they're effectively tanking at this point. Like they don't like to use the term tanking, but that's what they're doing. And so I think 5.5 points, little bit high sometimes for the Giants. I'm not super confident with them always winning spreads by more by this type of number, but in a game like this, must win for them to get a shot at the playoffs. I'm going to take the Giants at 5.5.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I can roll with that too. They're banged up. The only thing that I don't love about it is that their defense is actually pretty good. The Colts defense is actually pretty good, and the Giants can get it done against a solid defense. But again, like they're not usually leading by multiple scores late in games. This might just be a unique situation. But I will say that the Lions actually can lock up a playoff spot with a win here because they have the tie. So they're at 9-6-1. So even if they win, they're at 8-6-1, and if they won, they'd be at 9-6-1. So even if they lost, they'd be at 9-7-1. And even if the Seahawks, Lions, Packers, even if they win out, they would all be at 9-8 at the best. So a win today does guarantee them a playoff berth. So just bearing that in mind, I will roll with the Giants as well. I guess you guys have talked me into it. Not that I was, fighting that hard against it, but they're just not a team that I love with the spread more than just a few points. All right. Here we go. The New York Jets are traveling to the West Coast to play the Seahawks. They're favored by 1.5 points. Mike White is back. The Seahawks are trending down. The Jets were trending down, but Mike White being back it changes that a little bit because even when they lost a couple of those games versus the Vikings and versus the Bills, I mean, they were right there. They were right there. They dropped a touchdown pass on 4th down to win that game. You know what I mean? Like he put up excellent numbers versus the Bills. He played about as well as you could possibly play when you're basically getting your ribs crushed into your lungs. And I've got a lot of confidence in him certainly over the way that Zach Wilson has played. Seahawks, I don't think that you can overlook them though, because even though they're trending downwards, they still have playmakers. They still have DK Metcalf. They have Tyler Lockett, who's playing basically with one hand, which is, I mean, if you're a defensive lineman playing with one hand, I get that, but how do you play with one hand as a receiver? I don't know. But it looks like he's going to be out there trying to catch passes. Offensive line hasn't been as good, but Geno Smith is still overall played quite well. So this is a game with both teams desperately needing a win today to keep their playoff hopes alive. One's playing at home. One has to travel pretty far. What do we think is going to happen?
I'm actually going to take the road favorite here. I think Seattle, Seattle's kind of run out of steam. I think their offense has really broken down. It's broken down really fast. I understand that Geno is still performing well, but at the same time, they're not he's performing well, but their entire offense as a whole is not doing what's necessary to even keep them competitive in some games. Like they got into so many situations where they could have gotten to a scoring position against the Chiefs and found a way not to score. Like that's stuff the Colts know how to do. And so that's kind of how far, at least in my mind, their offenses kind of fell. And so I'm going to go with the Jets -1.5 here. I think the fact that the Jets at least have the defense to counteract some of the things that Seattle wants to do definitely helps out in this situation. So I would take the Jets -1.5 here. I think that it's just run out of steam. It's run its course with Seattle. I think they're now starting to realize that although Geno is good, um, he's likely not going to be a quarterback that's going to get them to the playoffs. And so I think today will likely be the I guess nail on the head point for that.
I'm gonna take the Seahawks. I got them at +2.5, but I still like the +1.5 here. A big reason for that, even with Mike White coming back, he's got rib injuries, which for anyone who's thrown passes, whether it was like baseball, football, whatever the case may be, if you got a rib injury, it's gonna hurt every time you throw the football because that's just gonna put so much stress on your torso. It's gonna hurt every time he gets hit. Like he's not gonna be, all fully healthy, 100% going into this game. And so I think you're going to see some throws where before the injury, Mike White probably completed pretty easily. This one, I think, is going to it's going to be a little bit more of a task for him to get through. And then Kenneth Walker's coming back into this game. Not going to be 100% either, but he is the best running back on this Seahawks roster. And I think the big reason for the Seahawks drop off offensively was when they were in that like big win streak they were going on. A lot of that was Kenneth Walker running all over people, making life a lot easier for Geno Smith. I don't think it's going to be quite like that today because the Jets defense is phenomenal. But their one big weakness is against the run. Teams do have they're 11th in the rush defense compared to in the top 5 and everything else. Like that's what I mean by their biggest weakness. It's still an incredible run defense. But I think the Seahawks are going to do just enough offensively to keep them in the game. And then being at home with the home crowd in a must-win situation, I like the fact that the Seahawks have been in more of these type of situations throughout their team. They have more players who've been in must-win situations where a lot of these Jets players have never been in a moment like this where they need to win to keep their season dreams alive. So at home with the crowd behind their back, a little bit healthier for the Seahawks. I'm going to take them as the favorite, as the underdogs, especially because I got them at 2.5, but I still like the 1.5.
Yeah, the home advantage for the Seahawks is probably like a full 3-pointer. You know what I mean? Like they it's a tough place to play. It really is, especially when you have to travel all the way across the country. For me, when I look at this, clear and away, the best unit involved in this game is the Jets defense. And then I think if you step back and look at it, the second best unit in this game, it's probably the Jets offense when Mike White is playing. So for me, it's like for a pick'em game like this, I will probably just roll with the Jets. I mean, obviously there's wishful thinking there as well, but will it all come falling down next week when they have to play Miami in Miami? Maybe it will, but I think at least this week they get the boost of having Mike White back. They believe in him. The team believes in him. The defense plays better when he's in because they actually believe he can do something with the ball when they get it to him. You know what I mean? They're not just expecting a 3 and out and having to go back on the field. So I think that for this week, at the very least, we see the Mike White legacy live on just a little bit longer. Next week, we'll see. Got to see how the Dolphins play against the Patriots this week and whatnot. But I think the Jets can get it done and get 1 week closer. So
I will add one other thing that's kind of interesting with the Seahawks is they actually have lost 3 straight home games now. and those were to the likes of the Raiders, the Panthers, and then the 49ers. So I mean, this is I understand the whole home field advantage thing, but they're not they're not taking advantage of it, because I was like, if 2 out of 3 of those games you're just like, yeah, they should win, especially against those teams. And what's ended up happening is those teams end up going on an absolute scoring tear, and Seattle can't keep up or even remotely stop them. So
Mhm.
that's one other thing I forgot to mention a little bit before that.
Yeah, well, I mean, when you look at the Jets' defensive front versus the Seahawks' offensive line, they're banged up. They're not playing as well. I mean, this might be a very long day for Geno Smith. And I'm not saying they can't score because they do have players, but like it's not gonna be easy. It's not gonna be in rhythm. It's gonna be a lot of him having to escape the pocket and or throw screen passes and try and make the Jets linebackers miss, which happens from time to time. But I'm going to take the Jets. I'm not pounding the table for it. I'm not crazy confident, but I think for at least this week they get that game. All right. The 49ers have locked up their division. They are 9.5-point favorites traveling to Las Vegas. Las Vegas, which has benched Derek Carr, which is a twofold move. One, well, it's actually they have their own first round pick. Yes, they do, because they only traded one. Yes, it's a twofold move. One, it will probably get them a better draft pick. And two, if they want to trade Derek Carr, they can't let him get hurt in the last 2 weeks of the season in meaningless games. That's what it comes down to. They do not want to have, they don't want to be stuck with an injury to Derek Carr when their full intent is to move on. I don't think that he'll be released. I think that would be crazy. I think people speculating about that they're underestimating the value of a decent quarterback. So he'll get traded somewhere for sure, 100%. But regardless, that's a conversation for another day. Needless to say, he's not playing, and the 49ers are playing incredibly well. So what do we think is going to happen here? I mean, 9.5, it's a fairly large spread, but it's not insanely large. I think you can still talk yourself into the 49ers covering that pretty comfortably.
Yeah, I actually have this before the Derek Carr news, and it was at -6, and I obviously would have I would have told you just run to the bank with that. 9.5 makes me think a little bit more, but at the same time, I think I would still stick with the 49ers here. I just they could just strictly run the football for the entire game and probably cover this spread, to be frankly honest. Like, that is how good they are playing right now. Their defense is absolutely phenomenal right now. I still think they're still not allowing teams over like 17 points still during this win streak. So I mean, you're gonna tell me that Jared Stim's gonna be the one that's gonna break that trend? I'm not expecting it. So I mean, so long, this is just more of like the 49ers are going to do what they need to do. um I don't expect them to make a lot of mistakes. They're going to keep the game plan relatively simple, and even in that mindset, simple seems to work out for them in much more in terms of effectiveness. So i I have the 49ers at -6. Love that. -9.5, a little bit more of a more mental gymnastics, but I'd still take the 49ers -9.5 in this scenario as well.
Kyle and I seem to be on the same page a lot of times with these like early picks, because I also got the Niners at -6 before the move for Jarrett Stidham. I'm I don't even know who's gonna. You're asking Jarrett Stidham to put up points against the Niners defense, which is, in my opinion, the best defense in football. Like, I don't think it's gonna happen. The Niners might seriously blank the Raiders, and I wouldn't be shocked. Now, the Raiders do have enough talent with Josh Jacobs, Devontae Adams. They'll probably make a handful of plays here or there against this team. But like Kyle said, the Niners could run the ball every play, and they would still put up points because this Raiders defense is awful. And I think people are underestimating Brock Purdy's performances with this Niners team. He's been playing some pretty darn good football for this team. Like, he's not just some backup who's handing the ball off 40 times a game and then throwing the ball like 5 yards downfield to safe passes. He's taking risks. He's making really good, smart throws. So I've been impressed watching Brock Purdy play for this Niners team. And that just might be a part of the Shanahan offense where just any quarterback could probably step in with any kind of, ability to read the defense at some kind of level and be successful. But I think Brock Purdy's been playing very good. I think this Niners offense is going to be able to do whatever it wants against this Raiders defense. And this is going to be a abysmal game for Jarrett Stidham. I mean, he may get hit every play because this Raiders offensive line is terrible, and that Niners defense is going to come and it's going to get you Jarrett Stidham whenever they want. So I'm taking the Niners even at -9.5. I'm still fully confident in taking the Niners in this game because I just don't know if the Raiders have enough offensively to do anything against this defense. So I'm going to take the Niners at -9.5 pretty comfortably.
Yeah, I am as well. I think that the Niners are playing excellent football. They've locked everything up pretty much, but they are still fighting for a potential number 1 seed. I think are they just in range to get that? I think they're at 11. I think they're at 11-5 right now, and if they win out, they go 13-5. Yes, no, 13-4.
Yeah,
excuse me. And so that it would technically require the Eagles to lose out, but regardless, they are playing for something here, even though the division itself is locked up, and I just don't know what the Raiders have going for them. Talent-wise, they're just not there. I don't know if coaching-wise, they're on the same level as the 49ers either, so I'm going to take the 49ers. And as far as Brock Purdy goes, I don't know if you guys ever talked about this, but so when we first started the show back in the summertime, we're kind of prepping for some of the regular season coverage by covering some of the preseason games. And I was like really high on Brock Purdy, the way that he was playing, and everyone was laughing at me because it was preseason. I was like, I don't know, man. He looks really good. And so I'm glad to see that read is coming to fruition. But I don't know if he's ever going to be a long-term starter. But on a team that's this loaded and this good, then he could get it done for sure. And he operates within the offense very effectively, and that's really all you could ever ask for from a backup. And heck, maybe he does get efficient enough that he could actually prove to be a starter at somewhere or at some point. Maybe he'll just be that Gardner Minshew level backup where he's just like one of the best guys to have as your bench guy. But who knows? Time will tell. We'll see what the playoffs look like. I don't think Jimmy's going to be back for playoffs. I know that there's speculation, but at this point, it kind of seems like they'd be upsetting the apple cart and just messing with the success that they've had to try and bring a guy back early for that. But we'll talk about that as the weeks arrive. Next up, we have a battle of the 2 Los Angeles teams. Rams +6.5 at Chargers -6.5. So basically, this is an extra home game for the Rams this year. Nice for them. Too bad they couldn't really take advantage of it in a season that mattered. But the Chargers are hot right now. They are. They probably will feel like the away team just because they always struggle with home fan occupancy. And all the Rams fans, well, who knows, because their season's kind of lost, but maybe they'll still show up. Maybe they'll still ride a little bit of that positive energy from the win in the Super Bowl last year. Regardless, I don't think there's really a home field advantage here. So that's like kind of a pure 6.5 point spread. Chargers are hot, but Rams they're kind of functioning. You know what I mean? They're kind of functioning in a way that they haven't all year. Another thing that we talked about earlier, when we were doing our picks and everything, was the health of Matthew Stafford. And people had kind of shrugged off, what tendonitis is, for him. And I was like, man, I don't know. Like, we're talking about 30 plus here. Tendonitis it is very painful. It's difficult to deal with. I think it affected the way that he played all year. You know, and obviously he ended up having other injuries on top of that. But like I don't think it's should be wildly surprising that the offense is playing better with another, reasonable quarterback in there. Question is just, what does become of Baker Mayfield after that? Because even I think that him leaving or I should say, I think the positive improvement of the Panthers has a lot less to do with the leaving of Baker Mayfield and a lot more to do with the leaving of what's his name with Rule. So I think that's that has more to do with it. Baker probably would be doing better in Carolina as well. So he'll be once again another interesting storyline as the offseason rolls around. But as far as this game today, Chargers managed to lock up their playoff hopes against the Colts. Might lock up two teams into the playoffs in consecutive weeks, but they managed to do it last week. Can the Rams play spoiler, though? Can they keep their dreams, or I don't even know how to phrase this accurately. Can Baker Mayfield keep his storyline alive heading into an offseason where he's going to try and get paid by somebody?
Yeah, kind of a weird spread because I think there are concerns. I have concerns about actually how good the Chargers are just based off that Colts performance, because the Colts were literally gift wrapping them that victory, and for whatever reason, the Chargers decided to play with their food for quite a bit before finally getting the job done. So I have some concerns about the Chargers, especially against, as you said, Max, a Rams team that when they're functional, they're actually a really good team. So I'm going to go with the Chargers -6.5 here, and I might flip this as we get closer to the game, because I don't feel great about this number just because I have those concerns about the Chargers. And if the Rams defense and the Rams team is functional like was against the Broncos, now obviously when don't think the Broncos game is a barometer of how good the Rams are, but if they're close to that level, I wouldn't feel great about taking the Chargers in that mindset. But for the sake right now, I'll go with the Chargers -6.5. I think they're slowly getting healthy, and the offense with Keenan Allen and Mike Williams looks so much better than what it was earlier this season. So I think if they do win, it would likely be more than a touchdown. That said, again, this is always a spot where the Chargers just do something that makes your head spin. So I will go with the Chargers -6.5 though.
Yeah, I'm also taking the Chargers at -6.5, but I'm not super confident in this one. I have one big concern with this game is maybe the Chargers take their foot off the gas just a little bit. They've clinched a playoff spot, so they're not playing for that. And really all they're doing is playing for wild card standings at this point, because they're not going to win the division, obviously. So they can't go any further past the wild card. And at that point, they may want to win or lose depending on who they are seeded against in the playoffs so far. Right now, it looks like they're playing the Bengals, so they may want to move up a spot to play the Jaguars. Who knows what's going on in their heads right now? Obviously, they're not going to play to lose. They're going to play to win every game. But they may just take their foot off the gas just a little bit, which scares me in this game, because you got Baker Mayfield, who doesn't take his foot off the gas ever. He's full throttle 24/7 every game. He's going to go all out. And so you've got the fear, if you're taking the Chargers, the Rams just coming in with a little bit more passion, a little bit more drive than the Chargers, coming out a little flat early on. And like Kyle said, it wasn't just that Colts game. The Chargers don't seem to put teams away like you think they should for a playoff team. They keep teams hanging in there probably a little bit longer than you think they should. So I think that could happen in a game like this with Baker Mayfield and this Rams team playing with a little bit. They seem to play with a little bit more fun. This Rams team seems to enjoy playing a little bit more than they did early on in the year. So there's some things that concerns me with taking the Chargers, but they're so much more talented in a lot of the key positions, mainly at quarterback and at the wide receiver position. So they should be able to take care of business. Like, it is a home game, but like Max said, it's basically a home game for both teams, so that doesn't affect anything, really. But I think the Chargers should take care of the Rams, but there are some things that like make me caution taking the Chargers. So I'm gonna take them, but I'm not super confident.
Yeah, Joey Bosa is back in this game. Aaron
Mhm.
Donald's out in this game. Still 6.5 is something I don't love because it's like I do think the Chargers are going to win it, but I just don't know if they're going to win it by that much. I'm genuinely struggling to pick this game. I think more than any of the others so far today. Um, yeah, I guess what this will fundamentally come down to is I'm just not confident in either one, but I will take the Chargers minus 6.5, essentially just to not lose a point in the standings to you guys if it does come down to that. Because like if I pick the Rams and I lose on that, I will just feel dumb. And if we all three lose together on the Chargers, I'll be like, whatever. That's fine. So that is really my genuine reasoning behind that. But because Joey Bosa might be good, but I don't know what he's going to look like after missing all this time. But anyway, we'll see. All right. Chargers it is. Now we have another big time game. The Vikings are home or away underdogs visiting the Packers. +3. So this is basically home field advantage plus a little Aaron Rodgers edge. This is interesting. I mean, I know that the Packers have been winning more games lately. I don't think that they've been awesome. And
Mhm.
the Vikings have been pretty good, but they just keep sealing out games at the last possible moment. So this is kind of a weird spread. It's a weird situation. Um, Bryson, you hit this on the head. You had the Packers getting in and the Vikings winning the division. It looks like that might be the case, but if it does happen, the Packers are going to need to win this game. So,
Mhm.
what do we think? Do we think that the Packers get this game, and then I think they have to play the Lions next week? So do you think they get the double divisional win here to close it out?
Yeah, I'm excited to watch this game. I think this is gonna actually be the Vikings and the Packers tend to play these crazy competitive games in recent years. This has the feeling of one of those games. I know the Packers have been beating teams that aren't necessarily great in their recent come up streak right now. Um, and I can't believe I'm going to go with the Vikings here, even though I did this earlier this season where I think the Lions were like a 1 point favorite, and the Lions and I took the Vikings because I was like, well, naturally the Vikings are the better team, and the
Mhm.
Lions absolutely destroyed the uh the Vikings. And I literally am thinking this situation here where I was like, oh, I'm getting 3.5. I have it 3.5, and I'm getting that number. And so I'm like, I'll take it because I think the Vikings are going to play in another close game. I wouldn't be shocked if this comes down to something inside of a field goal. That's just the way the Vikings roll. That's what all their games have come down to. They're just barely squeaking by. They're playing all these close games. So, in terms of in terms of the spread, I'd take Vikings +3. Wouldn't be shocked if the Packers won because again, this is a really good division game. Um, I would say the Packers are playing really, really well. One other thing to note, I know DraftKings is doing like this special where Rodgers and Cousins combined for 475 combined yards and it's boosted to +100. I would take that. I would take that very, very much because I normally don't take a lot of those DraftKings boosts because I think some of them aren't necessarily great. This one I would take because I think both of these quarterbacks could throw for 300 yards in this game because it has that feeling to me of being a very, very crazy wild game. with a lot of offense.
Yeah, I'm also taking the Vikings here, just like Kyle. The number 3 seems to be the Vikings' lucky number. You mentioned how a lot of their games come down to one possession. They have 5 games this year where they've won by exactly 3 points, which is just it's wild to watch. It seems like every game the Vikings come down to, they have a game-winning drive that seems to end up with them winning by 3 points. I think mostly I'm taking the Vikings. The health of a lot of the Packers' key players, even Aaron Rodgers, he's going to play today, but he had like a knee injury coming into it. He was questionable all week. So I think that does concern me a little bit. And the Packers defense, they have got their secondary has been playing pretty well, but that they've underperformed, in my opinion, pretty much all year, especially against the run. I think this could be a big game with Dalvin Cook on the road. Maybe the Vikings ask Kirk Cousins to do a little bit less, try not to air the ball out a whole bunch, and they just give the ball to Dalvin Cook, let him be the driving force of that offense. I think that's going to be their game plan for this one. But the big thing I'm really excited to watch for this game is the matchup between Jair Alexander and Justin Jefferson, because Jair Alexander, he's been on a tear with these quotes the last couple weeks after that win against the Dolphins. And he had another really good one earlier in the week about Justin Jefferson being human, not being a superhero. I think he might be wrong. I think Justin Jefferson might actually be a full-blown superhero with some of the things he does. And I think he could have a really big game, because I think that's stuff that Jefferson like pays attention to. He's like, oh, you think you're better than me? I'm gonna prove to you you're wrong. So I think the Vikings are come out, they're gonna try and not make it so their division rivals get into the playoffs. So I'm gonna take the Vikings mostly out of confidence that they'll find some way to win this game by 3 points. But even if they lose, it's at that 3 point, and I just don't think the Packers have enough to beat them by more than that.
Yeah, I want to ride the Packers to win in this game, but that 3 points it's like it will probably be really close. The Packers defense is playing a lot better than it was earlier this year. It was like there were individual performances that were good, but they didn't put it all together, and now it kind of feels like they're playing good team defense. Justin Jefferson will get his. There is no question in my mind. He's too good. He's going to put up yards. The question is, how is everybody else going to do? Garrett Bradbury's not playing. They already don't really have an awesome offensive line to begin with. And I mean, they've got good tackles, but the interior was already questionable. He was probably their best of the 3, and now he's not there. And that's a pretty tough matchup against some of the dudes that they have on that Packers front. So running the ball might be a little bit challenging for them. Do they say, let's just bracket the heck out of Justin Jefferson and and then like just put Jair on Adam Thielen and just lock it down on the other side, like the Patriots style? I don't know. I'm going to take the Packers to cover a 3-point spread in this game, just because I think they're going to win, and I might be getting too cute if I do think the Packers win, but the Vikings cover 3 points. Like, I'm just like trying to predict that Packers cover. Like, I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen, but I'll ride the Packers here. I'll go out on a limb. I think they're just playing well right now. They're hot. I think they are gonna manhandle their way into the playoffs, because I think the Commanders, they will probably win today, but they might fall against the Cowboys next week, which will leave the door open for whichever team goes 9-7 of the other bunch to get in, and that's probably going to be the Packers. All right. Sunday Night Football, another good one. This is for the division lead. Oh, excuse me. No, it's not. That's next week. It is a divisional matchup, though. The Steelers are +1.5 at the Ravens on Sunday Night Football. Obviously, Lamar Jackson's still not there, or else that spread would 100% be larger. The Steelers are kind of good with Kenny Pickett. If everybody's healthy, they still have a good defense. They'll make a game of this. I wish Lamar Jackson was playing, because it would be, a more enticing game to watch. But I mean, what do we think? Do we think Tyler Huntley is gonna win? Because look, 1.5 points, it's a pick 'em, right? So do we think Tyler Huntley is going to beat this Steelers defense on national television? Is really what this comes down to.
Yeah, this is a tough one. I actually have the Steelers at +3, and I think three is a golden number to have in this matchup. These teams just play close games. Doesn't matter who the quarterback is, doesn't matter how well either side is playing coming into this game. These two teams just naturally play something that ends close to, I don't know, 17-14, 13-10. That's just the way these two teams operate when they face one another. And so I have the Steelers +3.5. In terms of pick 'em, or like in terms of like the current spread at like -1.5, I would probably still stick with the Steelers here. I think the Steelers are understand they still have an outside shot at this, and Mike Tomlin still doesn't have a losing season under his belt yet, and I think at least that streak continues for at least 1 week. I think they played close enough to the excuse me, to the Ravens about a month ago, and I thought they had opportunities to win that game as well. So I wouldn't be shocked if they were able to squeak this one out like they did last week against the Raiders.
Yeah, I also got the Steelers at +2.5. I'm gonna stick them with the +1.5 here too. It's largely that defense. I mean, that defense when TJ Watt and Minkah Fitzpatrick are both playing is so hard to beat. I mean, they're just lethal on that side of the ball. And Tyler Huntley has not been playing overly great. Like he's been doing just enough to get them some wins here and there. But last time these two teams played, he went 8 for 12 for 88 yards. So he is not going to threaten this defense throwing the football much. I just don't know if they have enough around Tyler Huntley. I don't know if they run the ball well enough with their running backs to account for the Steelers pass rush and trying to slow that down, trying to make life a little bit easier on Tyler Huntley. I think you look at the Ravens stats, they're second in the league in rushing. A lot of that's Lamar Jackson. Like these running backs have not been great this season. Lamar Jackson has really carried this offense, and Tyler Huntley just can't do the same stuff Lamar does because almost no one can. And I think going in this situation, like Kyle said, the Steelers are playing for their outside chance of a possible spot in the playoffs. They're trying to get their winning record again, which is just something that Tomlin does every year, getting a winning record. I think this is a situation where the Steelers are healthier. Like Max said, they play so much better with Kenny Pickett in at quarterback. I think it's going to continue this week. And the Ravens are going to come up just short. I think it's going to be a pretty close win for the Steelers. But I think even at that +1.5, I'm really confident with taking Pittsburgh.
I'm going to take them too, again, because of the defense. I think that the running backs have been all right. I mean, it's pretty impressive to me what J.K. Dobbins has been doing lately, just considering all the injuries that he's had. And he looks pretty good. I think he'll be all right next year. But again, you're playing into a defensive line that features J.J. Watt, who's also incredible against the run, Cam Hayward, and it's just a slew of guys who are very, very good. And then you've got Minkah Fitzpatrick patrolling the back end, where they like to throw passes to the tight end over the middle. Well, that's a little bit tougher to do when you have the best safety in the NFL, just, roaming around there, picking off passes. So I'm going to roll with the Steelers here too, with points. The Ravens have already locked up their playoff spot, so they're really just hoping that Lamar is going to be healthy in time for that. That's really the end game here. I haven't heard any update of his timeline, but they're probably being pretty secretive about it either way. But I think the Steelers win, and I forget, do you guys know who they're playing next week, or should I double check it real quick?
Well, the Steelers will be playing the Browns, right?
Browns, yeah.
Browns.
And then the Ravens and the Bengals, because it's always divisions the final week.
Browns and I know the Ravens are the Bengals, and that if the Bengals lose to the Bills today, that could still be for the division. So there's always a chance that if Lamar Jackson's back next week, that will be a really key game for them too. But at least for this week, I'll take the Steelers as well. I wouldn't be surprised if the Steelers do make it to 9 wins. I would be pretty shocked if they make it into the playoffs, though, because it's a tough out for them. I think they need everyone to lose at least one game that's in the running right now. Because I don't think they have the tiebreaker over anyone. But all right, last game that we are picking today, the Buffalo Bills at the Cincinnati Bengals on Monday Night Football. This is going to be a fun game. I am very much looking forward to this. Look, so right now we're still over 24 hours out, so things might come to light here and there about who's necessarily playing and who's not. But the teams are mostly healthy, so I think we can just kind of assume that they have the full complement of players. Bills got back Tre'Davious White. He has made an impact while they've simultaneously lost Von Miller. So basically they have almost the exact same team that they had last year in the playoffs. The Bengals have almost the exact same team that they had in the playoffs last year. Basically, they've rebuilt the offensive line. They did lose Lyle Collins, which sucks. And then you substitute Hayden Hurst in for CJ Uzomah. But aside from that, like this is basically like two of the best teams from last year repeating. So it's at the Bengals, so they've got their home field advantage there. It's not a very far trip. I don't think that it's necessarily like the biggest home field advantage in the NFL with the Bengals. Either way, Bills are they're battle hardened at this point. They know who they are. So it kind of comes down to which defense can make a greater impact, which quarterback can be more efficient, which team does not turn the ball over. I think that's really what it's going to be. And lately, Joe Burrow has been better about that. Josh Allen can go supernova. He can run the ball on you. He can make plays like that. But Joe Burrow has been more efficient. He's been, keeping the ball a little bit safer. Neither team has great offensive line situation right now, but both have very good receiver situations. So, I mean, this is a team, this is a pair of teams with clear identities on either side. They both know what they do well. They both know where the shortcomings are, which are few and far between. And so, what do you think, Kyle? I mean, again, it's essentially a pick'em game, and this ultimately could tell us who is the number one overall seed, because if the Bengals win and the Chiefs lose at least one of the next 2 weeks, they could actually walk away with it.
Yeah, very, very interesting game to try to figure out. Essentially, you are picking the winner in this game. I'm going with the Bills minus 1.5 here. I probably would have gone with the Bengals last if I didn't watch the Patriots game last week, because again, this is my one issue with the Bengals. I don't like their head coach. I don't necessarily think he's overwhelmingly great in terms of game planning and situational awareness. They should have been able to just comfortably get away with that win, and yet they found ways to let New England back in that game and almost darn lost that game as well. So I just think in terms of a close game, I know the Bills also have their own concerns in terms of salting away games or closing out games. I'm going to go with the Bills here. I think they're still I think they're the more talented team, and in my mind at least, that should bear out with them at least being able to cover and win the game outright. So and I'm just going to be fascinated to watch this game, because again, it wouldn't shock me if these two teams met up in the playoffs a little bit from a month from now as well. But I'll go with the Bills minus 1.5.
Yeah, this is a extremely tough game to pick. I'm gonna take the Bengals, and these are two teams. The Bills are on a 6-game winning streak. The Bengals are on a 7-game winning streak. So these are two extremely hot teams going into this game. I'm gonna take the Bengals largely because of Joe Burrow. I don't think Joe Burrow is overly more talented than Josh Allen, none of that kind of stuff. But there's something about Joe Burrow in these big games, these primetime games, where he just wills his teams to wins. I think that's something that could happen in his home stadium again this week. He plays so calm and cool under pressure. I think he's used to pressure at this point with how much he's been hit over his NFL career. So he's like, if I can handle getting hit by these guys and still throwing touchdowns, that no moment's too big for him in his head. And I think Joe Burrow is, he also has more talent, I think, around him. Yeah, Josh Allen is Stephon Diggs, who's probably a top, rank him in your top, whatever you want for receivers. I have him probably in the top 3 personally. I think Stephon's incredible. But Joe Burrow also has Jamar Chase, and he has T. Higgins, and he has Tyler Boyd. He has Joe Mixon. Samaje Perine ran the ball very well for them when Mixon was out. I think Burrow has more talent around him. I think he lives for these type of moments. I don't think he cares about the Patriots game personally. I don't think he looked at that as a really important game for this season. I think he looked at this game as a spot for him to really show that he's a top quarterback in this league. And if there's one thing I'm more confident with Burrow right now, it's what Max said. He's been doing a better job of not turning the football over. Allen has a turnover problem sometimes when he gets flustered. He tends to turn the ball over. And I think that in a big moment like this on the road, that could be something that happens 1 or 2 times where Allen throws a ball where you're like, what? That was right to a Bengal. What are you doing? So I think it's going to be an extremely close game. I just think Joe Burrow has just enough, just something in him to will the Bengals to a win. So at +1.5 at home, I'm going to take the Bengals.
Yeah, this is tough. I mean, I was kind of feeling the Bills, and then you kind of like bring me back. I love Joe Burrow. I think he's one of the best in the NFL right now. I think if there was a guy like outside of the Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen, he would be that next guy. I think I will still go with the Bills just because of their defense. The Bengals have a good defense, don't get me wrong, but I think the Bills are better. I think with Tre'Davious White healthy and Jordan Poyer playing, like, that's a really good secondary. Yeah, not having Micah Hyde stinks, but Jordan Poyer is awesome. And their linebacker group is phenomenal. Their front is very good, even without Von Miller. And even though I think the Bengals have just more top-level pieces as far as playmakers, Stephon Diggs is just like, he's kind of that guy. He'll get his pretty much no matter what. So I'll roll with the Bills. If the spread was any bigger, I would probably be tempted to move off of it, but I'll stick with them for now. I'll ride my gut instinct, and that'll be my pick for this week. It's tough though. I think once we get to the actual playoffs, even if this exact same matchup were to switch, like my opinion might switch. It's a great game, a great primetime game. I kind of wish there was a different game for Sunday Night Football, to be honest, because even though the AFC North is always fun, there are games here with more playoff implications. Like, I mean,
Packers,
even though the
Vikings.
game would be kind of ugly, the Panthers Bucks would probably be one I would be more interested in watching. Dolphins Patriots. I mean, even the Jets Seahawks is probably a game that I would probably rather watch on primetime. But all right, that's gonna do it for this week, man. This is fun. This is an awesome week of football, and I'll be honest, this is the first time that I have gotten to watch my own team play a game that has playoff relevancy in week 17 since 2015. So it has been 7 years now. This would be the 7th year. And so it's good to be here. You know what I mean? It's like, I'm just happy to be here. One of those feelings. But for the Broncos, it's not the same for you. You guys haven't been to the playoffs since 2015, but you did win that Super Bowl that year at least. And also you've been close at the end of seasons before as well. Like, you haven't been completely out of the picture by the time this rolls around.
This was probably the earliest we've been eliminated from the playoffs in a while.
Yeah, I think so, because they've always had a pretty good roster outside of quarterback, and so they've always been like close enough that they were kind of just outside by the time the season closed. And Kyle,
Mm-hmm.
You guys obviously you were in a win and in situation last
Yep.
year and in the playoffs the year before that. So for me, it's been a long time coming. The Jets have still the longest active playoff drought since 2010. I was in college the last time the Jets made the playoffs. That has been a long time. So, all right, Jets, let's keep it alive one more week at least and just go into Miami, with a real shot to make it. Kyle, thanks for joining me. Why don't you let everybody know where they can find you between now and next week when we either come back to celebrate victories or mourn losses?
Yeah, you can see my work on Gridiron Heroics, and then I'm also on Twitter at Kyle_Nishida. Hopefully, we get results that make it so the Sunday night football game next week is not Jaguars to Titans.
Yeah, no, 100% agree. Actually, Bryson, I'm gonna give you a chance to shout your stuff out here, and then I actually want to take predictions on what we think that Sunday night football game actually will be. So, Bryson, where can everybody find you and your work?
Everyone can find me both on here at Gridiron Heroics and on DenverSportsBetting.com, and you can follow me on Twitter at BrysonOwen16. It's BRISON.
Beautiful. All right, and you can find me on Twitter at TheMaxDean. Of course, you can find our producer Noah Ashley at Noah Ashley Sports, on Twitter, and he's not with us today, covering from New Year's a little bit, but we always appreciate him so much. So, real quick, who do we got? I mean, Commanders, Cowboys. We talk AFC East. NFC East. You talk Cowboys. That's always an opportunity. If the Bills beat the Dolphins, if the Patriots beat the Dolphins, then the Patriots will be playing to get into the playoffs against the Bills. The Bills could potentially be playing for the number 1 seed. Falcons, Bucks, probably not. Let's see here.
I was thinking Baltimore or Cincinnati, but I don't think they would put Baltimore on there 2 weeks in a row.
Probably not. Also, if Lamar's not playing, I don't think
Right.
they'll double highlight Tyler Huntley. So,
I kind of like Lions Packers in Lambeau. Chance for either of these teams to make the playoffs.
Yes.
That's
okay. So if the Lions and Packers win this week, that has a very strong possibility. Let's see what else. Oh, Jags Titans. That could, just because it's for the division, but it's simultaneously, if the Titans looked like such hot
it's not going to be good
this past week.
No, it's not going to be good football.
They don't want to put Josh Dobbs in week 18 Sunday Night Football. Jets Dolphins could happen if the Jets win, and especially if Tua Tagovailoa is supposed to be back. If Tua is supposed to be back, then that could, because that's a win and in situation, division rivalry. Neither team has made the playoffs in a while, so that is one that could get put. So, all right, what are your predictions?
I think it's gonna be Cowboys at Commanders. I think any chance Sunday Night Football can get the Cowboys on a primetime spotlight, they'll take it. And so I think if things go the way we think they are, it'll be the Commanders and the Cowboys will be playing for something next weekend.
I think it'll be Lions Packers. Same thing with the Cowboys. Anytime they can get Aaron Rodgers on primetime, this Packers in Lambeau, chance for either of these teams to make the playoffs. I think that's going to be a really fun one if they slot that in there.
So I think Lions Packers is really good. The Commanders, if they win this week, they go 8-7-1. It's not clinching, so that could be it. I don't know.
If the Eagles drop this one to the Saints somehow this week, that could be Cowboys playing for the division.
Yeah, I don't think so. Like, I suppose, like, if certain things were to happen, that could be it. But I'm gonna lean away from that one. I think Packers Lions has a very strong possibility, but it also depends. Both of those teams have to win to make that a really good game. Because I think ideally what they want in that matchup is winning in,
Yeah,
and losing out. I don't think they want only one team to like. So for example, if the Lions win and the Packers lost, then even if the Packers won, they wouldn't get in. They would just knock the Lions out. I don't think they want a situation where both teams get knocked out. Like, you know what I mean? I think they want whoever wins that game to get in guaranteed. So I'm gonna go with the Dolphins Jets.
How's it going?
Because I think the Jets are going to win this week, and it doesn't matter if the Dolphins lose this week. It'll still, as long as the Jets win, it'll basically be a win and in. And I think if the Patriots lose today to the Dolphins, it's even more of a sure thing, because then the Patriots have no chance to steal that from the Jets. So I'm gonna pick the AFC East matchup for my prediction. All right, guys. Thanks so much for joining me. Appreciate you. Looking forward to this one. Let's go watch some football. This podcast is brought to you by Gridiron Heroics Media.
Check the mic and make sure it sound right, boys.